Hi there, everybody. I'm Russell King from Orange.
And Iris Weiss from InfoTools.
So, firstly, it's a real pleasure for Iris and me to be with you today, albeit digitally. I'd like to start our story by looking back to the SMR Congress of 2015 in Dublin. During that Congress, I introduced a panel discussion about the future of brand tracking that was based on a benchmark exercise Orange had done, where we asked around 20 other global how they do tracking, what was important to them. We found 5 consistent themes, one of which was around automation, speeding things up, reducing error, and creating the time to think by removing all the mundane tasks for both the client and the team. Today, that might not seem revelatory. Back when we did the research, there really wasn't a very high number of the clients who were actively working on this theme. Orange committed to trying to improve our tracking based around these 5 principles. The focus today is on automation and the journey we've been on with InfoTools over the last 3 to 4 years and what we've learned along the way and how that might help you and your business. There's plenty of research around that says, well, everything's important, and we all know that's the case. But what is really key in complicated categories is that the brand plays a role by creating that shortcut to purchase. So ensuring that everyone in your business knows what makes for a strong brand is important. There really is no new news here. But everything we know about our brand and the competition has to be not only understood, but communicated efficiently so it can be acted upon. Before we continue, I recognise not everybody will be familiar with Orange. So briefly, this is us. We're a global multi-services telecommunications company offering mobile, fixed and TV services as our core. Our 29 countries are located in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. And whilst the customer base is currently predominantly mobile, we're swiftly building a fixed broadband base through the deployment of our super fast fibre services that's going to help with our next generation of products and services. The global telco industry is a really competitive market. The operators have made it a very competitive place to do business. But at Orange, we firmly believe there's a place for a brand with strong values and a clear positioning, creating that shortcut to purchase, giving consumers confidence in this ever-increasingly complex and technical environment. So with this context in mind, we needed to dramatically change the way we went about things from a research perspective. The benchmark exercise I referred to at the beginning helped enormously, as we had evidence for our management showing we needed to do things differently to keep pace with the rate of change we were experiencing in our category. This was a step change for Orange. We were quite manual in our output, which created slower access to the insight, meaning actions weren't always taken in the timely manner that was needed. And we had been set a challenge of wanting to know before anybody else. So doing things differently was our only choice. And that meant these 3 things are standard. Previously, delayed conversations with local markets compromised the ability of our research to influence positive outcomes. Rather than learning and responding almost immediately, we learned by looking in the rearview mirror and suggested changes that were likely a little bit too late to have the greatest impact. Our digital goal, we believe, would certainly help us to answer our objective of delivering the right information at the right time. So, enough of the background. What did we do? What's been the benefit? And what have we learned along the way? We looked around and we chose to work with InfoTools. The great thing about working with these guys is that they matched our desire for a bespoke and unique platform, really putting us at the heart of the process as opposed to trying to fit our needs into an off-the-shelf solution. However, you really have to be patient because by not being off the shelf, we had to design, test and learn. So creating success was all in the planning, and that really does take the time. Our strong partnership began during this initial phase. Many hours sat in front of whiteboards, drawing layouts and designs with like-minded people. We wanted to get this right and dedicated the time required to think hard and debate what was needed. We were happy for InfoTools to put across their thoughts from working with other clients, but we were also very clear in our own objectives. After all, what's the use of a great bit of kit that no one can use? There's been many an example of innovation going that way in our industry and beyond. Whilst we were looking around, we made a conscious decision not to use an agency-supplied solution. This was right for us. It might not be right for everybody listening today, but for Orange, the need to be able to load multiple projects from different suppliers into one place was of paramount importance. If you have to learn different tools, remember different passwords and usage design, you simply won't use it. We felt that this would waste the valuable time of our executives, not only in using, but also in trying to secure time to train them on all of these different platforms. The group research team also needed to look like a joined up unit in front of all of our local stakeholders, and different solutions for different projects just wouldn't work. And we also have the option that in the future, should it be necessary to switch our main agency, we can maintain consistency of delivery for our business, something that's very important for the organisation. So we came up with our power stations. They're fast and responsive to promote timely actions. They're based on data that's fully trusted to ensure the credibility and confidence of every user. And they're well designed and visually engaging to promote user self-service. And I'll hand now to Iris to talk in more detail about the platform itself. So over to you, Iris.
The Orange Power Station was created with user experience front and center. But to secure ongoing funding, it always had to be more than just a cool dashboard to use. The design had to meet a real need. I'm going to talk about the importance of understanding all the objectives of a project before you start to build anything, and how we went about doing that. Any endeavor that is to succeed must first start with a complete understanding of what success looks like. And to understand that, you have to fully understand the goals, the objectives of the endeavor. The endeavor in this case is to build a platform that delivers the right information to the right people within Orange at the right time. But that is only the beginning of what we need to know in order to build the best platform. One way to move on from that beginning is to think of objectives as hierarchical. In any domain, there's always a single highest level goal that everything you do serves. Over the last few years, many companies have embraced the principle to align all their objectives in the form of OKRs, objectives and key results. OKRs were invented by Google, and they tell us that progress on meeting any objectives can be measured by monitoring a set of key results specific to that objective. Each key result in turn is then an objective in its own right with its own key results, and so on. In that way, objectives cascade through an organization. This hierarchical nature of objectives is a great framework with which to view large projects like this one that serve higher goals of organizations. So, what were Orange's high-level goals? You may have picked up from Russell, Orange's high-level objectives are all about people. Their approach to innovation is that human beings are the starting and finishing point for all their activities. They call it the human inside philosophy, start and end with a person. So that's where we had to start and end in putting this project together. Cascading below that, in the spirit of OKRs, were many specific objectives, all of which map back to the human inside objective, and we needed to get to the bottom of them. To do that, we talked to a lot of people, the whiteboard sessions Russ mentioned, and most of these people had some pretty good ideas of what they need in a system. And as a designer, that sort of input is gold. But at the same time, it is really important to make sure the conversation starts with the objective. And to keep that focus, you sometimes need to coach the people you serve to talk about what they're trying to achieve and not to simply tell you the features of the thing they want you to build. It's like asking someone with a horse and a cart what would make their life better. They'd probably tell you a stronger horse and a bigger cart, when what they really want is to move more stuff faster and cheaper. As a designer, that's what you need to find out to give them the best solution. Keeping this discipline and making sure we really understand the objectives means our skills and experience as a designer and researcher will have some chance to make a client's life better. Otherwise, our efforts are reduced to commodity, and if that happens, nobody wins. What should be a commodity, though, is fully trusted data, because you can't even begin a conversation about designing a system like the power station unless everyone completely trusts the data. What we found in our business over the last decade is that better technology has made it easier to get reliable data. which leaves more time and energy to be dedicated to design and to adding more value. We've been really lucky to work with a great team of researchers at Kantar Millward Brown on this project, so there's never been any question about the data. That's one of the reasons we've been able to focus so much on the design. I'm playing a little video now of the power station in the back. So, looping back to some of the objectives Russell mentioned, Orange wants to know before anyone else, which means things must get in front of the right people fast. So we automate early days. But the principle is that if the machines can do it, let them. They do it fast and accurately, and it frees up the humans to do more thinking, which machines aren't quite good at yet. Orange wants everyone in the business to know what makes a strong brand. So we designed the system to be really easy to use for everyone, and we built it to support as many users as they need. That's both the technical solution and the pricing model too. There's no point in having a great platform if you hit the paywall trying to scale the use of it. Orange also wants everyone in the business to be story finders and storytellers, not just the researchers and insights team who can become a bottleneck at times. In the Power Station, users can make their own reports. They can add commentary to create their own stories and then share them immediately and widely because it's all online. That gets the stories into the hands of people who can actually use them. But using the stories, the research, doesn't just mean making good decisions. It's all about the actions. The whole notion of better decisions needs to be replaced by one of taking better actions. Because actions inspired by the research that positively influence the business is the test of the value of research. Proves the value in that way, and the money will keep coming. Russell will share a great example of that in a moment. Before I hand back to him though, I have one more point. Don't assume you're done once it's published. You've only just begun. Once people start to use it, the feedback flows. Old objectives get met and new ones replace them. Technology develops and allows us to do things better and faster than before. So the next big thing for the Power Station is to get the right stories to the right people at the right time, wherever they are. To achieve that, we're working with Russell and the team to get alerts and notifications pushed out from the Power Station, which are also used as a marketing PR to the C-suite. Over to Russell now to wrap it up.
Like a lot of stories, we just need to head off on a tangent for a moment, as I'd like to mention some more work that we're doing, but this time around verbatim responses. This still maintains the theme of automation and also impacts our power stations and the work we do with InfoTools, so I thought it might be interesting. Putting open questions into global tracking studies is a hugely expensive exercise. We're all aware of that, and one that really rarely pays back in terms of the output produced. It tends to be either huge Excel files that are sent to internal clients, or a few examples of text in speech bubbles to emphasize a point during a presentation. We've worked with InfoTools to fully automate the process and to integrate the output of every individual response into our power stations. We use automated translation and machine learning to generate our topics and themes, which means we've dramatically increased the value and business impact of open-ended questions. For example, we now have 12 times the volume for no additional investment. Whilst text analytics is not new, what's different is that the themes and verbatims have been integrated directly into the power stations. This allows anyone at Orange to interrogate and assess the interplay between the themes, verbatims, and other survey variables, for example, such as NPS, all at respondent level. So, back to the main chapter of the story. I guess for a concrete business example, it would be good for us to look at our acquisition of a company called Jazztel in Spain. By purchasing Jazztel, it gave Orange access to a fixed infrastructure and services that would have been far too difficult and expensive for us to create ourselves. But clearly this meant a debate on brand strategy and the need to manage two different brands. In the pre-power station days, the role that research could play would have been limited, but by providing accessible, timely, and insight and brand knowledge, the power stations played a key role in successfully negotiating the challenges that we faced in integrating Jazztel into the Orange business. We were able to sit in the same room as the brand management team and visually demonstrate similarities or differences between the brands. This was crucial as the project was moving forward incredibly quickly, and any delays in providing insight, for example, having to request data from our agency, would have meant a far more limited role for us as researchers, as we would have always been answering yesterday's questions. We, the research team, really would have lost relevance with a really important group of stakeholders. But now we have the ability to answer the questions and explore data patterns in the same room during the same session and provide our output in a visually engaging manner. And this, in terms of the impact it has on our business, was priceless. It helped us move the conversation from one of posing questions to the research team to one of working together, of getting answers immediately the questions were raised. The power stations contributed directly to the new ideas and the strategy that's currently being executed. By being able to work more closely with internal teams, both at corporate and local level, we continue to demonstrate the value that research can bring. The goal is to change mindsets and have the whole business view research as an investment and not a cost. If we're forever behind the curve as far as strategy is concerned, how can we be seen as anything other than a cost? Influencing the business, changing outcomes, that leads to being perceived as an investment. With our power stations, it's now much easier for any executive, whether they're in France, the UK, Senegal, or Jordan, to get access to the full data, to see stories and to understand movements easier than ever before. We know they can't break it or misrepresent the information, so we don't need to handhold, but we're able to manage from afar. So, if this is a journey that your business might be embarking on, it might be good to remember these three things. Find a partner that will focus on your business needs and offer the flexibility, adaptability, and customization of their product suite to meet your needs and objectives. Take your time. Really, planning is everything. There's no rush to get to the exciting part of seeing your vision on screen. The tool you deliver will reflect directly upon your team and department. And you could argue it's as much as a PR tool as it is as a business strategy tool. And finally, involve others outside of your team. Having been in there from the beginning, act like a product developer and do your user testing and refining. If you follow this path, I think you'll end with a platform that has a powerful impact across your business. We're now over 275 users with almost 2,000 user sessions last year. Now, this might not seem much for some of your organizations, but for Orange, this really does represent great forward motion and great success. And to put it this way, we really could never have served all of these people and all of these needs as a team of just 4 people. And so our influence is expanding without us having really to travel anywhere. Thanks for your time and have a great rest of the conference.
So, Horst, thank you for joining us to give the audience the opportunity to actually be able to ask live questions.
Thank you. I'm ready.
Okay. Did you face any issues with the proliferation of report types by different managers or teams wanting different reports that showed just what they wanted to see?
Yeah, that's a good question, really. And I think the answer there is really in the design setup and bringing all the stakeholders together at the beginning. And both Russell and Iris, I think, mentioned it to some extent. Is there was quite a bit of a design process at the beginning, understanding the research team that works with Russell, but also the brand and marketing teams, what kind of questions they have. And that really helped us to understand, okay, what are some of these reports that we need to pre-arrange for them, and what kind of filters and things like that need to be included in the design. And then we worked from there. There was also a couple of previous reports that we could look at, obviously, and try to replicate them. But that was really as part of the design and setup phase.
Okay, and here's another question about local markets. And it's noted that local markets may have different reporting needs, such as campaign-related tracking. How are the local needs addressed in your customization process?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Again, I think so. What this tracker is mainly looking at the global tracking data. That's similar across all of the markets, and then yes, they have individual questions. So what's happening is there's two levels of access to this information. One is what we call an Explorer access, which users can pretty much cross-tab every single question that's in the survey for their market and analyze it themselves. And they're usually the market research team members. So Russell would have a few members, obviously, at his headquarters in London, but at the same time, there might be an insights person sitting in a specific market. So they would have access to all the data. And then you have what we call viewers, which is all of the preset reports and outcomes and dashboards that we build for them. So yes, the explorers, they would have access to the detailed level and the market level data.
And probably connected with that, what sort of process do you have for managing who has access to the reports? Because on one hand, you want to probably encourage as wider access as possible to, like junior or more extended team members. But then I guess there's a trade-off with licensing costs and things.
Yeah, and I think absolutely the main goal for this is to share this information as widely as possible. And as Russell said, we have over 250 users globally, and trying to expand that, of course. The good news here is our license costs are that basically Russell pays for, or Orange pays for, what we call the Explorer. So those are the ones that can deep dive into the data until the hard content, and everything that's pre-baked that's used by viewers, that is free. So whether it's 250 or whether it's 300 or 400, they basically that doesn't change the cost for those. So that's where your access would come through your junior execs or your marketing or brand people. So that's all covered within that license cost.
And this one, what does presenter mean about no hand-holding as the stories and insights from research are controlled by InfoTools? Where are the interpretations shown on the platform? Does it allow for chat-type functionalities in your platform to handle question and answers?
Oh, that's a
let me know if you want me to read that again, because it's quite a few bits to it.
Yes, please, yes.
Okay, so there is like a reference to no hand holding, and I suppose it's some clarification around what does the presenter mean about no hand holding as the stories and insights from the research are controlled, inverted commas, by InfoTools. So I suppose that's a bit about who's got control of the insight.
So maybe I'll answer that one first. So what the tool has, as I said, has two different levels. One is the Explorer, which has all the insights people can play with the whole data, and the other one is the viewers, where we have pre-prepared stories and reports and insights that should answer most of the questions. And I think one of the goals for Russell's team was that about 70% plus can be answered through the platform. So yes, that's allows the users to go in and say, okay, how does my brand compare in this specific market on these specific metrics? And they're allowed to do a certain amount of filtering, again, pre-agreed. And that's, I think, is by the no hand holding. So they can do that, and it's there for them. They can save those reports, and they will be automatically updated as soon as new data is there. So I think that's that. If they have any more questions, then they can't find out through the platform or through what's pre-prepared for them, then that where Russell's team comes in globally, what then helps them to look at the full data set.
Okay, and I think that answer probably covers sort of the third part of that question, which was allowing for chat type functionalities, but I'm not sure we've entirely covered off where is the interpretation piece? Is that part of the platform, or is that happening outside the platform?
Both, I think. So in terms of the interpretation, so the users can build their own stories and follow that path. Again, depending on the user access level, they can only go so far down let's say the rabbit hole or the information, and at some stage might have to go back to the insights team, but they can certainly get a good sense of interpretation of what's going on in their business, which is pre-prepared for them. But there might be times where they might need to go back to the insights team. As I said, the target was, I think, 70% of the questions that Russell's team had before can be answered through the platform, and they smashed that, and I think it's well beyond 70 to 80% at the moment. It depends on the access level, really. If someone has full access, they can answer every single question and can interpret all of the data as much as they want or as little as they want.
Hi, Sue and Horst. Ray here. Just picking up on one of the earlier questions and a new one that's come through, my own thought. Can people annotate the materials? So I see that we've done really badly in Spain. I put in a marker so other people can do it. A bit like when you read books on Kindle, you can put a marker in there and other people can see this has been marked. Is there some way of collaboratively annotating and building stories that way?
Yeah, that's a great idea. They can't do it right in the data yet, but it's a really good point, actually, which I will take back to our software developers. What they can do, they can build reports and stories, and these can be exported to PowerPoint or Excel or anything like that, and you can even within the story put notes. So when you build your stories, you can add notes or comments to this. They can also share those reports with other users. So I can build a report and say, hey, I had a look into this particular brand in Spain, and here's my interpretation of that data. And then I share it with you, Ray, because you're also a user, and you pick it up and say, okay, so Horst has done this already. I do some more analysis on this, or I might have a deeper access level. So there is definitely some sharing. So all of the users can share their reports with each other. They can't annotate right in the data yet, or in the database yet, as in your notes on Kindle. But that's a really good idea that I will put forward to the team. Great questions, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks, Horst. That's the end of our questions. We've managed to cover them all. So thanks very much for coming online to give the audience the experience of being able to ask those questions, because I think some of them have been really useful.